Hello and welcome to The Square Window, the podcast that rewinds time to take us back on a nostalgic trip to the golden age of kids' TV shows. I'm Gareth and I'll be your host. I've been a professional animator for nearly 3 decades and a cartoon fan all my life, and I love to talk about the shows I watched growing up. My guest on this episode is Simon Quinn. Simon is a multi-award winning producer and line producer who's been working in the film and TV industry for over 37 years, with numerous credits under his belt, like The Corpse Bride, Frankenweenie, Isle of Dogs, to name a few. He's also a consultant producer for Magic Light Pictures, recently working on The Scarecrow's Wedding, which will be shown on BBC One on Christmas Day. Simon's choice of show to talk about today is the classic British show, The Wombles. So grab your litter picker and come and join us as we take a wombling trip through the square window. So, hello, Simon, and welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your time. And we're here to talk about the Wombles today, which is your choice. I haven't imposed that choice on
No,
anyone.
my choice, absolutely.
Excellent. And so I usually begin the podcast by asking the guests to sort of paint a picture of their childhood and their interaction with TV and how they found the program, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So please take it away.
So I grew up in Farnham in Surrey. My dad's a teacher, and I am one of 5. I'm the eldest. I've got 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Back in 1973, I would have been just gone 6, 7 years old. My sister would have been 5. My other sister would have been 3. My other 2 brothers weren't even born. There was just the 3 of us at that point. When the Wombles first came on, what you have to realise is that British television was only 2 or 3 channels. It was basically BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And you had a very limited amount of television. Even looking at the schedules, the BBC used to do shutdowns. So even twice a day, they literally would shut down for an hour and go and have a cup of tea or whatever they did.
Like a Spanish siesta.
Like a Spanish siesta. They did it
Amazing.
twice. They did it in the morning and they did it in the afternoon. And then basically they started up again when we all got back from school at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then children's programmes began.
Wow.
And they went on until 5:45 when the news came on. So if you weren't out playing football and, mucking about in the playground, you only had a very limited window to actually watch television. And I think the reason that the Wombles became very special is because it's one of those stop frame animated shows that used to be on just before the news, which usually meant bedtime. So it was the last thing you watched before you went to bed. And, you either got a bedtime story, which was, maybe or maybe not didn't happen, depending if my dad had to do all the homework and stuff, but definitely that was your last program, and so we used to look forward to it, and I just remember it. Apart from anything, I grew up in a period where it was literally the Wooden Tops and Andy Pandy, and things were puppeteered or they weren't animated; they were on strings, and so when you saw the Wombles actually looked like they were alive. They were real. They'd come to life. I think that's why Stop Frame was so special. It's because it's like your toys had come to life.
That's right. They still get that feeling now.
Still get that feeling, exactly. So it's sort of a magical thing that I've been in love with most of my life, I've realised. I think the Wombles would have been one of the first programmes, that we understood that. And again, as a sort of a co-viewing thing, it would have been, in fact, I think even my mum and dad would have sat down because my dad would have been waiting for the news to start.
Yeah.
So everybody was in the room at the same time. And it's one of those things that I think that's been lost nowadays, obviously.
Yeah.
The way people, the way people consume things nowadays. But, early memories, Magic Roundabout, Captain Scarlet, you know, I remember drawing things constantly. Basil Brush,
Nice.
when we moved to Guildford, Basil Brush, his garden was at the back of our garden.
No way.
And,
Amazing.
and the school where my dad worked, Basil Brush actually came and opened the fete.
I think it's a load of old codswallop.
It's not a load of old codswallop. Huh?
So he came in on a lorry, and I met Basil Brush when I was like 6, 7 years old. You know, I mean, that it's like you're meeting your childhood heroes. It's just, you know, it's just fantastic.
It's quite sad that knowing that there's a generation now who, like, my kids wouldn't even know who Basil Brush is.
Oh no, he's on telly.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything with my kids now. What's TV? Unless it pulls up in the YouTube algorithm, they ain't got a clue. But
Yeah, I mean,
thank God, I love Basil Brush.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, again, it's this thing, isn't it? It's like because I'm a puppet maker and because I work within those circles, I've met the people that make the puppets, and I've met the people that make Basil Brush now. You know, it's absolutely hilarious. You know, like Darryl Warbury, who lives just up the road, you know, makes Basil Brush, and you just like, it's so funny to know that you're working with people that made things that belong to your childhood. It's
That's amazing.
Strange place that I live in my head.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just remember working on Fireman Sam, and obviously I was never involved in the puppetry or any of the set animation, but I'd go just walking around the studio on my break, just like nosing in, and you just see these toys. They just toys to muggles, you know, and they just seeing them there and knowing that, you know, you've seen them on TV is such a good feeling. It was the same at Aardman when and they were filming Early Man, and you'd be allowed to go down and wander around the set, you know, when if none of the booths were hot, and just having a look in, and each booth, it's like this magical feeling, you know. But I love stop mo.
That's the interesting thing I think about it. It's that when you look in, it's static. So behind the curtain, you know, it's very strange. The animator, when he's in there and actually working, and I know they've got lots of, like, you know, little clips of how it's done with time lapse, so you can actually see the movement. But actually, when you look in, they're static. They look like toys. And there's this magic that happens behind the curtain. And then when you watch the rushes, they're moving. And it's just this sort of thing, it's just life. And it is, I always compare animators to wannabe gods.
Yeah, yeah, mega massive god complex.
God complex, exactly. You know, but it is that thing of, you know, animation is bringing, you know, animation by its definition is to bring life to something.
Yeah,
and that's what animators do. They are bringing life, and it's absolutely fascinating, and it's such a beautiful process.
So, you know, obviously, like BBC One and ITV, the sort of mainstays of shows. Was there much on BBC Two at the time then, you know, in terms of animation?
No, it used to show secondary stuff. So I think in the mornings they did like the university programs and things like that. Get the occasional kids program, but really they kept things very separate. So BBC One really was where things were shown. And ITV had its own version back in the day before Mrs. Thatcher. All the ITV companies, I think there was like 15 regional companies, by law had to make children's programs. So that's why Central Television owned Filmfare, and basically Lewis Rudd would just come down and tell us, what would you like to make? Here's your budget, you deliver it. They did no oversight. There was no editorial. Nobody read your scripts. They literally just took the program and showed it. So, you know, the directors and the writers, I'm going to say ran riot, but had total creative freedom.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of trust in that. And it was the same with Granada owning Cosgrove Hall.
Yeah,
you know, so you had this big company in Manchester, Cosgrove Hall, owned by them. Same thing. You have to make kids programs. So you had this golden age, as it were, of children's programs, and also you had lots of commissioners, and then and it was also very regional. So you had lots of people all over the country making really interesting programs. You know, which is why, you know, up in Birmingham you had, you know, Rainbow, and you had, you know, Hartley Hare, and, you know, all of these sort of like crazy characters, and they were all being done in different parts of the country, and they had different accents, and it was, you know, for me it was a golden age of television for that reason. As well, you know. And then Mrs. Thatcher came along in 91, 92, I think it was, decided to sell the licenses for all the companies, all the regional companies had to bid for their own license. And because of that, and because of the monetary strain, they said, well, actually, do we have to make kids programs? And literally after the licenses were won, Filmfare was sold, Cosgrove Hall was sold, and then very soon the whole kids industry went on a big slide. In fact, we're hitting that sort of period again now. So suddenly it became very difficult to make kids TV because all those companies now had to be standalone, and they had to go to companies and literally tout for work as opposed to actually getting it. So it was a real shake-up. So the 90s was a bit scary in that sense. And at that time, I was a puppet maker, so I diversified. I went into commercials.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's an interesting period looking back, because the diversity of kids' TV started to lower. It was less and less diverse, but I remember the commercial work in the 90s up to the noughties really pushing boundaries in terms of stop motion, and like the crunchy adverts.
Yes,
and all that sort of...
I worked on one of the crunchy adverts. I was the lead model maker. It's one of my greatest ambitions. One of my great, really proud of that advert. It was the roller coaster one.
Yeah, thank Crunchiest Friday. Shocks Like Dead and all that. Yeah,
it was
remember it.
But again, rightly, I think the sort of the ban on advertising products to children with lots of sugar is correct. But that got hit as well. So commercials suddenly died off.
There's two people who aren't coming out to this podcast very well, right?
No.
One of them is Margaret Thatcher, and the other one is Michael Bay. and they both of those guys seem to get an absolute kick in every episode as we're talking about the 80s and film animation franchises. And rightly so, they deserve it. So when the Wombles came on telly, then obviously it was because the Wombles being based on a series of children's novels by I think it's Elisabeth Beresford.
That's right.
Were you aware of the books before the shows came on?
No, wasn't aware of the books at all. I think I was again, my reading level would have been Peter and Jane, and I was at literally at junior school. I don't remember the Wombles. To be honest, I just don't remember having very many books at that time. I think it was a lot of Enid Blyton.
Makes sense.
lot of Noddy and things like that. I think Singing Ringing Tree was on the telly. There was sort of like it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like the books that you remember. I don't really remember very many books per se. I think it's because I struggled with reading.
Right.
I found it very, very difficult. It was a very slow burn for me. Now it's my favourite occupation. I have at least 3 or 4 books on at any one time. I just absolutely love reading. But I think I possibly was dyslexic, because I remember my dad spent almost every evening making me read Peter and Jane books. I think even till I was 11,
Nice.
I could figure out, word structure and things like that. So, but then it sort of something clicked and off I went.
Awesome.
Wasn't aware of it in book form, but I think I think the music really took off. I think Mike Batt's music was absolutely fantastic, and I think there was a slight bit of confusion amongst us kids between the animated show and then seeing them on Top of the Pops. They definitely look different, but it was something I think my sisters really, really bought into it. I think there was sort of like a ballet dancing thing that happened with Madame Chalet, and
Sure.
And she really got into it. And singing them on Top of the Pops was one of those things where it was very exciting when you were little to be allowed to even sit up to watch Top of the Pops, because
of course,
it was late at night for us. But it's an interesting thing. We weren't aware of the books, but we were aware of the annuals that they used to bring out at Christmas.
Yeah,
that was a really, really big thing. So and then of course they did get read on Jackanory.
That's right.
You know, so you would have a guest person coming in, and I think, you know, this is the other thing about Bernard Cribbins. I think
Yeah.
Bernard Cribbins, absolute genius. The voices that he used to come up with, you know.
Yeah.
One of my favourite characters, Orinoco. I think, so I've got Orinoco's. I think you can relate to him as a child because he was always making mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was interested in two things, which was food and sleeping.
It'll be mealtime in 10 minutes, Orinoco. You may have a double helping for working so fast. Oh, thank you. So just time for 40 winks, then. It's been a very tiring morning. Oh.
Yeah.
And basically, he wasn't the adult. You know, everyone else had a sort of like quite an adult role. They did quite adult things, whereas Orinoco was basically like a child. So he was the most relatable character, you know. And I think for me, I think he had a catchphrase which was like, you know, time for 40 winks. You know, there's always about 40 winks. And the other one was kind of like, what are we having for tea? It was like, it was these two focuses basically. And pretty much that's what you were thinking as a child. It was like, while you were watching the program, you're thinking, I've just had my tea. And the second, I'm about to go to bed. So you were kind of in that zone for where Orinoco was as a character. And the other one I really liked was Tomsk, because he was really sort of like down here and bit dim, but he was strong. He was the guy that had the pickaxe and the tools. And one of the episodes is like, he's supposed to be repairing a floor, and Orinoco is supposed to be operating by hand a concrete mixer. Not necessarily good imitable behaviour for children nowadays, but he'd attached a bell to it so that if he fell asleep, he'd know that he wasn't turning the handle. It's just genius. It's so fun.
It wasn't preachy storytelling. It was sweet, but it was funny. And obviously the message behind the Wombles is that, you know, it was recycling and reusing materials and you know, creating new tools. And
it sort of occurred at the same time as a campaign for Keep Britain Tidy.
Yeah.
So again, you know, I mean, if you go back to the 1970s, Britain was known as the dirty man of Europe. The dirty man. Our rivers were polluted. You couldn't go to the sea. We had given we're a coastal country, we had no blue flag beaches. You couldn't go in the sea for not swimming in sewage and shit. I mean, that's how bad. I mean, we're almost getting back there now.
Yeah.
You know, and so the message was there, which was basically, you know, and it's quite sad, isn't it? Almost 50 years later, we're still having the same thing, which is, why are human beings, you know, so careless? With the planet, and why don't they care enough about recycling? But you know, again, the Wombles were, you know, everything they found they made into something useful, and they put it in their burrow. And again, that was a sort of like that, you know, I think that was something that maybe happened after the war. Things were very scarce, and so really made an effort. And as things got more and more prosperous, essentially things became more disposable. You know? And there wasn't really that sort of thought, you know, like, you know, packaging was suddenly you could throw away packaging, whereas before things, you had to put them in a bag and carry them home, and they weren't in packets. Now everything's in packets, you know. So again, you're sort of, you know, everything is covered in cellophane, everything's covered in paper. That's not how it used to be. You used to go and put it in a bag, and everything was in the bag together till you got it home, and then you put it in your boxes afterwards when you got home, you know. So it's really, you know, again, it's, you know, we've created the waste issue. And I think, you know, the reaction that Elisabeth Beresford had to that was, you know, this isn't right, is it? You know, there's litter everywhere, and the Wombles were out there cleaning it up. And I in my head, they were almost like invisible. Humans
like little,
you know, and they were sort of like, I know they were coming out in the day, but it just felt like they were always out there doing stuff, and the humans were totally blissfully unaware to what was actually happening. You know? Which is also, you know, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's like, you know, we rely so much on our dustmen and cleaners and people to basically clear up. Oh, it's all happened by magic. We just drop this stuff, and suddenly it gets cleared up. So we don't have to. We just keep dropping it on the floor, and people tidy up after. It's like we're kids.
You
know, it's
We usually like I've asked a couple of people on different shows. Do you think you could make this show now and it'd still resonate? And I think this is one of the few shows that could easily be remade right this minute with the same sentiments and the same sort of storyline, and it would fit right into modern society.
It could, and I think that the difficulty would be to not make it too crusadery,
Yeah,
but to have the message, still running through. You could probably amp it up a little bit more. I think what an interesting thing might be to actually have included a real human child interaction.
yeah, cool.
Where, in the future, let's say someone decides to remake it, where inclusively, I think again, it's that thing. If these characters are constantly tidying up, and it's all like, oh, bad humans, but actually, if you included a small child or two kids, and actually they came in on the secret of the Wombles,
Yeah, nice.
to be believed by adults, but then your audience might relate more.
Yeah,
To the creatures, So I think there is. I imagine there's quite a clever way of getting children to relate more to it. But yeah, and it has the potential to be fun.
yeah, I
And
think
still
so. Yeah,
relevant and
yeah,
and again, I don't think necessarily modernizing it means turning it into CG or
that's
changing
right. Yeah,
lines, or I think it could still work as stop frame. It could
Yeah.
work as, I mean, I work a lot with Magic Light, and one of the things that Magic Light do very well is they make CG look like stop frame.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, and now I work with them and for them. I'm part of that. And and we do a lot of research, and I know. I remember talking to one of the modelers there, and I was looking at the Gruffalo, and it's got textures in it, and it's got bubbles in it, and it's got a paint feel that feels like when I used to spray puppets with latex. It would have little bubbles and imperfections, and underneath the skin you'd have air bubbles that would create and fingerprints and marks. All of that imperfection they've managed to put into CG now.
yeah,
And now it's like I'm looking for the seams, and the naughty people have actually put seams in on something to actually make it. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, come on, there's an air bubble there. How did you do that? And then Sam, who's actually brilliant, she turns around and goes, well, I made it first, and then I put all the things that I learned when I made it, and it took me 15 years to learn how to make puppets like this,
yeah,
and she cracked it, and and I'm like, oh, but it works. They shoot on tooth. They've really learnt about keeping the squash and the stretch down to a minimum, ground reality. Not making it all floaty. It's everything's moved on. So I think you could probably make the Wombles in CG and make it look exactly the same as a stop frame.
Yeah.
In all honesty, if you were, I think you keep hearing a lot of prejudice about stop frame as a old-fashioned medium. But that's partly because it's been around for well over 120 years. Starovich was doing it back in 1907, 1911, King Kong 1933, Ray Harryhausen. It was the go-to special effect. I did a little study of stop frame feature films, and there was a stop frame feature film made every single year from 1900 all the way through to now. And yet we're struggling to make a stop frame feature film year in the UK, but there's one being made somewhere, but there's never been that sort of breakout with the audience that you would have hoped in the way that the sort of the CG movies have managed to do it.
Yeah. It's an artisan.
Well, it's considered like that, I mean, Aardman still have the box office record for a stop frame film, which is which I think took 160 million, but that's nowhere near the billion that you get with a DreamWorks film or a Pixar film. And again, if you look at the top 100 feature films, but their gross, you'll find about 50 are animated. So animation hits way above its weight in terms of filmmaking. But sadly, stop frame hasn't quite broken out of the the craft viewpoint of it. It doesn't feel like it's commercial enough. And I think I remember going to Annie Effects in '97 in LA, just after Toy Story had come out, and we took all our stock frame models with us, and everyone came up and went, "Oh wow, your work's fantastic, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
What are you doing?" And then they all, to a man or woman, turned around and then said, "But we're all now training to do CG. We're not doing that anymore." And it was literally, there was like this cut-off point.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Sam, we had the company called the Puppet Factory, I said, "Oh my God, we're in trouble." And then within 3 years, we were gone. You know, we weren't making puppets anymore. It was just like, you know, and that went across the board in kids' TV and commercial and feature films. It was just, everybody just turned their back on stock frame.
It's like a knee-jerk reaction to it, isn't it? It's like, oh, look, that's made money now. Let's move to that. And it's the same with, the way the traditional animation has gone. It's like, oh, look, that didn't make money. That means traditional animated films are no longer required. It's like, well, no, you've just made a bad story. It's still, you can look elsewhere, and you can see that traditionally animated films are doing well. It's just, you just got to put more time and effort into what it is you're making.
Yeah. Well, they said that about 2D as well, didn't they? I mean, Disney at one
Yeah.
going to shut down its entire 2D.
And now they're talking about bringing it back.
And now it's all about bringing it back. But 2D never went away. It's purely about, where you want to put your money. And if the money goes a certain direction, then, the studios aren't going to survive. And it's really interesting that France, for instance, is, still teaching and doing beautiful 2D. And if you look at Studio Ghibli in Japan, are you saying their films aren't successful?
Exactly,
it's like, it's the stories that you want to make and how you tell them and finding that audience, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, and that's an interesting segue actually into the next bit, because I was going to talk about Ivor Wood, because Ivor Wood is sort of, in my mind, is synonymous with like a lot of the stop motion shows from this golden era of kids TV. We're talking Postman Pat, and I believe Bertha and things like that. And he's
Paddington,
Paddington, yeah. And so he was brought on. So you had Elisabeth Beresford did the books, and then as you mentioned earlier, it got some traction on Jack and Ori, I think, and then Filmfare decided they wanted to make a show out of the Wombles books, and they brought on Ivor Wood, and they asked him to do a little bit of a redesign, because the illustrations in the books, they weren't quite what we know as the Wombles. They were sort of more teddy bear, like they were rounder.
Well, Elisabeth Beresford originally described them. She said they're a bit like teddy bears,
Right?
And I think the illustrator was quite literal. And actually, Ivor Wood and his wife actually made the puppets.
Right.
We spoke to them. So me and my wife made the Wombles. We did a remake in 1991 at Filmfare, and
Amazing.
we had the original puppets in our hands. And obviously, they have a certain type of woolly fur material for their bodies.
Yeah.
Have this sort of very golden corduroy-looking fabric for their faces. And so we called up Ivor Wood to say, "Did you have any of the material, or where did you get it from?" And his wife very kindly gave us the telephone number of a shop in Edinburgh where she'd gone and bought the materials in 1972. We were like, okay. And we rang up this shop, and I'm going to do a terrible Scottish accent. We ran up the shop, and this lady said, "Oh, I've been expecting this call."
Oh, amazing.
Like, what? And she goes, "I've kept the material." And she had on the shelf the two materials that she'd bought 20 odd years ago on the shelf. Wow. And basically she posted us all that she had, and it cost us like £6 a metre or something, and it was a yard in those days, not a metre. She posted us literally like 2 or 3 yards of this stuff for £6. And we essentially I took apart one of the original Wombles to see how it was made, because I then we couldn't work with the original ones. They we only had one set of puppets, and we had at Filmfare we had like 5 animators and an assistant, so we needed several sets of puppets, and so we had to remake them. And again, we knew they were going to look different from the old ones just because of the fact they were new. You know. And again, we didn't want to destroy all of them, so we took them apart And I remember opening the heads, and they were made out of paper mache, and all the blinks fell out. It was like confetti. And you could read the headlines from the day inside. And it was just fascinating. The brass links that they had inside, they were held together with bicycle clips. You know, the
Jeez.
bicycle links with these little brass
Yeah.
plates. They'd handmade everything. It was absolutely stunning. And then, me and my wife then had to sort of basically use modern materials, but we got their fabrics. But they had like balsa wood feet. And because I'd worked at Spitting Image, I'd used this material called plastizote, which is like a car noise insulator, but it pins in the same way, because essentially the way that the animators get the puppets to stand up is they put pins through their feet into a soft wooden floor. And essentially plastizote has the same properties as balsa wood, but it doesn't turn into confetti when you stab.
Yeah, of course.
So we kind of upgraded and improved them with modern materials on the inside.
Yeah.
But actually, we kept everything the same, the proportions, how they were constructed. We just modernized certain elements of them. So the reason that you'll have an original Womble to one that I made is it'll have plastizote feet, whereas another one will have balsa wood feet. And the original one will have brass interior ball and socket joints. We used a chap called Harminder Flora, who was at the Imperial College. I think he did this as a sideline. He used to make armature joints for us.
Awesome.
And they've got these steel plates with brass balls, whereas Ivorwood was using bicycle chain and brass balls, and so there's subtle differences from the outside. They should look the same because they are actually
brilliant
materials. They're the same proportions. We copied them as closely as we could, but obviously they're slightly newer because they haven't been handled and they haven't aged, and the air hasn't got to them, and the sweaty hands and all of that. But yeah, it was a privilege to do it, and it's so strange to have watched it, being 6-7 years old, and then being a 23-year-old.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
And
That's amazing.
remaking them, and then talking to the actual people that made them. And in fact, one of my friends, Dennis Russo, actually animated on the original Wombles, which is really interesting. So you touch this history. It's absolutely fantastic. I've lived a charmed life in that sense.
I think that's such a nice thing about animation, though, is that from experience is you can love something as a kid, and there's still the potential to work on that as an adult. It's like Paddington and things like that. I'm still crossing my fingers for Star Wars, but
a good version, I hope.
yeah, it's got to be good. It's got to be good. If Magic Light want to make any more Star Wars shorts, give me.
That's not in their wheelhouse. That's not.
But yeah, it's like that's the lovely thing about it, and taking elements of things you loved as a kid and infusing it into your work as you get older, and then other people seeing it and going, "Was that from the Wombles?" And they say, "Yeah, it was, yeah." And it is. You're right. It is like a charmed life in a sense.
Yeah.
So with Ivor Wood, and then the sets were made by Barry Leith, and there were 2 series of 35-minute episodes produced, as with the first one aired in 1973.
Yes, but when you see it's made by Barry Leith was also, there was only 5 or 6 people in the studio. Barry was also an animator, and he became a director. And in fact, he again, his daughter, I was the best man at the wedding.
Brilliant.
Well, it's this sort of like, well, not their wedding, they were at my wedding. But yeah, we touch on the history of people constantly as the children get to work on things that their fathers and their mothers worked on. It's really funny. But yeah, I mean, Barry made the sets, but then he would also animate, and he would also he would also load and unload the camera and do everyone just did everything in those days. So
a communal TV production.
Well, it was everyone was multi-skilled, multi-talented. They really got on with it.
Yeah.
because they
You
had to.
had to, I suppose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you had to, because there was no book on how to make these things. There was no YouTube tutorial on,
Yeah.
how to make a successful kids TV show. Uh, it was do it, and we are literally making this up as we go along, and you get the sense of that as you watch, but that's what brings the charm. It's like I can imagine that those guys were like constantly trying to solve the fur bubble, because you were working with furry puppets, and you're always going to get that boil, but that's what brings the charm to these old shows.
Yeah, I mean, again, they didn't have video assist. This is the other thing. They shot
Crazy.
on film. They loaded up, a small amount of, a few feet into the camera.
Yeah.
They would animate for a couple of days, unload the camera blind. They didn't know what they'd shot. Quite literally,
Amazing.
animators were doing all this in their heads, just through experience. Anything that they'd left in. So, for instance, if you left a pair of pliers,
Yeah.
or if something on the set, it could actually be in the shot, and you'd hope that either no one saw it, or you'd have to reshoot the whole thing.
Yeah.
See the rushes, and of course the rushes were silent. They didn't have sound. The sound was done later. There's a whole load of stuff that people don't understand. I mean, it's a bit like people talk about the dinosaurs that Ray Harryhausen animates.
Yeah.
Their feet kind of slip sometimes. And it's because he used to pre-drill the holes. So he would work out where the dinosaur would go. And sometimes he'd miss the mark as he was animating, even just by a few millimeters, and he'd have to kind of slide it forward. But again, he's doing it blind. He's doing it he's doing everything with surface gauges. He's literally measuring things with rulers as he's pushing it along. It's just incredible, the stuff that they got out, given how little technology they had. The technology they were doing, the boundaries they were pushing were absolutely extraordinary, And I still think a lot of the animators, the old school animators who are still going, like Mark Waring, who's an animation supervisor, on Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. He first started with us at Film Fair in Huxley Pig, straight out of Farnham College. And, he learned how to animate very quickly, because we were expected to do 8 to 10 seconds a day. He learned without a video assist. You were expected to animate without any reference point, and those guys do it all in their head.
That's what always blew my mind.
And it's like, and he's still a phenomenally quick animator. He still has that memory muscle, is what I'm going to call it. Just able to carry that global vision of how a character is acting. And again, it's that thing of they're not acting a performance in real time, because they're only shooting a few seconds in a day. They've got to carry that performance over weeks and weeks and weeks. For what those few seconds are actually going to happen. So that's again what's amazing, is that they've managed to keep that consistency throughout. I mean, I think they're magicians. It's
100%.
It's magic. It's just always been.
That's right. I remember on Fireman Sam, and you'd see animators like Tim Allen and Tom Edgar, and I'd go into the booth while they filming, and a cup of tea, and I'd sit quietly in the corner, watch them doing it, and I'd be like, "So how do you know?" And they'd be trying to explain to me how they animate, but they couldn't. They were just, I don't know, just gonna push it. It's like that fast show sketch. I'm just gonna put this here, and I'm gonna press button, and then I'm gonna put it there, and I'm going to press button. And it's just like, okay, I still don't understand how you're doing it, but I just like watching it. And then I remember coming up to Tim Allen, inviting a few of the guys, the team from the university course I was teaching on, up to London to see the Corpse Bride. And he was working on that long table shot.
Yes.
Which still to this day, when I see it, and I remember Tim doing it, and it absolutely blows my mind how he managed to get a performance from 10 characters sat there, one at the edge of the table, and Barkus, the villain, monologuing as he's walking down. And he'd be on this massive set with his knee pads on, and he'd get up there, and he'd move each one, and then he'd climb down, and he'd press a button, and then I'm sure he was on it for like 10 weeks or something, wasn't he? I'll have to ask him. He's going to be on an episode.
Again, what's incredible is you know, again, this is the thing. You've got, let's say, 5, 6, 7 characters in shot, or you could have 3 or 4 characters in shot. Each character has a different personality. It moves in a different way. So,
Yeah.
a fox moves differently to a mole or a badger.
Yeah.
One might be grumpy, one might be happy, one might be angry. They've all got different personalities. So the animator is carrying different. I think they must be like split personality. You know what I mean? It's like
I know.
All those characters, all their traits in their head, and they're consistently acting different characters in different ways in the same. That's what's incredible.
Yeah.
So,
but then they'd go home and then they'd come back and have to do it the next day. Exactly the same. It's like, how the hell?
Yes. And they carry that. And they put lots of beer in between as well. So they go to the pub, have lots of beer and still be able to do it the next day. So that's what's really amazing.
I think that might be a lot of why they were doing it so well. Yeah.
But yeah, so fabulous.
Music-wise and character voice-wise, again, a lot of the shows I've recorded so far, they focused mainly on American TV shows, again, through the choice of the person I'm speaking to. So you start getting into this, you start seeing the same name pop up, it's like you're in there between different shows. This one is the first show I've done where every character and the narrator have been performed by one.
Yes, Bernard Cribbins.
Actor, Bernard Cribbins.
Absolutely. Who was who was Doctor Who's assistant?
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
He's a fabulous actor anyway.
Yeah.
But again, it's that thing of he was again part of our childhood because he was across everything. He was in everything. See him in live action things, but he was very, very versatile. But what was lovely was, he really gave every character a different voice.
Yeah.
And each one, he'd really thought through them. And again, he was doing it to picture.
Yeah.
So, he's responding to the images that he's seeing as well, so which is absolutely fantastic. And then you add to that. I mean, it's like it's one of those things that when you bring things together, you can't quite believe you've got a fantastic team. But you add Mike Batt to that and his music, and the fact that his music is so good, and the fact that he also had a vision that actually I think I could take this further. I could do this really good. I mean, he's almost. I think he's almost the first person that understood the power of franchise music, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
He actually went, hold on a minute, this is a kids program, but actually there's a life to it outside of this. Why don't I try this? And boy, did he run with it. I mean, he from what I understand, he made millions out of it, and well done. He had a lot of records. Might remember the albums. I remember I think there was a feature. There was a ballet. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like, it really, it caught the imagination of children, but it really, I mean, I remember I think we were a little bit confused when we were little, like how big the Wombles were.
Yeah.
Because on the TV show, we'd sort of imagined them as quite small, and then suddenly they're on
top of the pops.
And they look different, so we were confused because but then you could go and meet a Womble. I mean, how cool is that? So now you can actually go and see a character in costume and actually touch them. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my God. So, I think again, it became a really big show because it did lots of firsts.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
in the UK, lots and lots of firsts.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's also, again, part of its endearing, in our memories, and the charm of it is that, for a lot of kids, you would have met your heroes for the first time.
Yes.
The TV programs come to life, and not only come to life, you can hear it, buy the records, you can buy the toy, all of that stuff, which you couldn't necessarily do. I don't think merchandise was anywhere near as big as it is now.
Well, it adds to the experience, and as we know with any sort of merchandise on a show, a lot, and again from experience now of recording these, a lot of the American shows were literally in existence to sell toys. The toys
Yeah.
came first and the shows came second.
Mhm.
And we didn't see that so much with any of the British shows. It's like Super Ted came from stories, from books and things like that, and was never really there was never really a lot of merchandise for the British shows.
Yeah.
But Mike Batt, taking this ball and running with it, was offered £200 to write the theme tune, and he asked them instead if he could have the rights to form a band of the Wombles, so that the whole thing with the costumes and stuff like that. And I was looking at
Genius.
it's genius,
genius.
absolute genius. Because I've been looking at they didn't release a massive amount of songs, but so 1974 in January there was the Wombling song, and that got to the peak it got to was number 4, 23 weeks in the charts. Remember You're a Womble, which is the song I remember the most, got to number 3 in 1974, 16 weeks in the chart. But then Wombling Merry Christmas, 8 weeks in the chart. The peak it got to was number 2 in the British charts. But I mean, there's the money spinner there. You write an original Christmas tune, and you are practically coining it for the rest of your life.
We wish you a wombling Merry Christmas.
Fun to,
Yeah, but he also had albums.
Yeah.
Like I say, there was a lot
Tours.
tours. There's a lot of content, and again, it's at a time when not necessarily a lot of family entertainment out there.
Yeah.
If you see. So again, it was like, again, it feels like it was something that families could do together, and it'd be very exciting and dare I say wholesome.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that these days. I think is that we miss a lot of that now. I think shows these days feel they have to be edgy to grab that sort of young demographic, whereas you got shows then like Blue You proving that you don't have to be edgy. You just have to tell a nice story that you can relate to, and
Well, also be genuine. Again, the phenomenon that is Bluey. We're always told by broadcasters that kids aren't interested in adults, but in actual fact, kids at that age spend most of their time with adults, mum and dad.
Yeah.
And school isn't the biggest part of their lives. When you're you're preschool, so and it's all about, really, it's about kids' interactions with adults. It's all about that. And again, it comes down to why does it stand out? Because we've been told for years not to put adults in things. And then you got adults acting with their kids in a genuine way, doing things families actually do together.
Yeah.
And to my mind, the magic of it is how the kids interact with mum and dad. That's where the comedy comes from.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Behave and how they understand the world, and how the parents try and explain the world. It's great. It's such a good show. It's a guilty pleasure for any adult.
Oh,
I think
100%. Yeah, I mean, I've waxed lyrical probably in every show about it, and like my kids are going past that age. They loved it, and now they're going past it. But I'd happily sit and watch them just because it's so well written and relatable.
Yeah, relatable because as a father, you'll relate to it because you'll be thinking about how crazy your kids are and what the crazy things they said are and what situations you're in.
We constantly have arguments about who's farted and who hasn't. So it's like it's usually me, but
fess up.
Yeah, there's not even. It's always me. There's and then that leads us directly onto theme tunes then, because I think this is one of the all-time classic theme tunes.
Absolutely,
And,
there are ones that stick in your head, aren't there? And the Wombles is one of the. I was going to say the things that like Danger Mouse for me was like a big theme tune, and Jamie and the Magic Torch, which is my there are certain things that just really stuck in your head. They call them earworms.
Yeah,
but again, the genius of a good theme tune is, can you capture the spirit of the show and get people to hum it?
Yeah. Well, that was and that was a funny one, because when I was showing when I had it on and we were watching it, my wife was in the kitchen and we were talking about the Wombles. She said, I can't really remember the Wombles, but as soon as I heard the theme tune, I got it. I remembered it straight away, and I remember the theme tune more than the actual show, you know.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said. No, it's just it's hummable. It's a earworm. It's quick. Obviously, like Mike Batt made it longer to release as a record, but it just does everything it needs to do to get you into the show. And it's quite whimsical as well, you know.
Yeah, it's again, if we all knew how to do it,
No. Yeah. I
you know,
can't carry a tune anyway.
well, yeah, you don't want me at karaoke, that's for sure.
Have you? I know you mentioned Jamie and the Magic Torch, but have you got any favourite theme tunes like over the course of not just as a child, but then like as a career in animation production as well?
Oh, you see, that's a difficult one, isn't it?
It is,
'Cause,
yeah.
you know, I'm also very lucky to be one of the producers on Paddington, and you know, we've got our own Paddington theme
I
tune.
love that. Yeah,
Again, it teaches children how to spell the name.
it does. Yeah,
It's also, you know, sung by Gary Barlow. I mean, come
yeah.
on, you
Honestly,
know.
I didn't know. Until I was working on
And
the
he got his
show,
kids.
and then
He got his kids
yeah.
on it as well. You know.
I was looking through the credits, looking for my name, and I was like, past Gary Barlow. I was like, no way.
I know. And again, you know, if you want to talk about, you know, genius songwriters, you know, to have him again, what a privilege to have someone like him write a theme tune. And again, you know, it sounds simple, but in actual fact, the way he structured it, the way it comes through, it's an earworm. I think broadcasters like to call it a call to action, but it is just, you know, it's like Paddington. It's like, yes,
Yeah,
Paddington.
it's
You're in.
classic. Yeah,
You're straight in. You know,
that's right.
it is what it does on the tin. And I think that is the thing about a theme tune. You know, I have some sort of slightly odd ones that I really like, partly because of
Cool.
their peculiarity.
Right.
Moss Chops was a little
Moss
show,
Chops.
also done by Filmfare, and it uses these sort of like little flute piccolos. It's quite odd. It's a really odd tune, but I absolutely love it. There's something about
Awesome.
it that for me, you know, maybe it's just I've got an odd sense of music or something, but it's just one that I can hear it in my head now. You
That's
know,
amazing. That's
it's
the best
so fun.
ones.
Can't underestimate how important music is to a show. You can't. And it's not just for kids. I mean, that is probably the most annoying sentence you could ever hear from anybody, you know, because the children are going to become future human being
That's
people,
right.
society. They're actually really important, and we constantly underestimate how we educate our kids and what we give them. And
Definitely.
you want to give them, you know, we talk about good citizenship. Could the Wombles be any better at teaching someone to be a good citizen? You know, it again, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, you know, you put the message in there, you give
Yeah.
it great music, and again, you know, we're sort of, as usual, we're under threat from you know, government and you know, AI and the big tech people essentially undermining human creativity and trying to sell us. But you know, we make money because of the IP we create. You know, and you make money as a musician. You come up with the ideas, and you sell that music, and you publish that music, and you get paid for your creativity.
Yeah.
You know, now people just want to give it away for free.
Yeah.
And yet we are, as a nation, punching way above our weight. I heard the other day that, you know, 1 in 4 albums that sold in the world comes from the UK. A
It's
population
amazing.
60 million people, a tiny little country, sells 1 in 4 of all the albums. 1 in 4 of all albums. You know what I mean? This is a huge thing. Why would you give that away for free? It's an income for the
Creative
UK.
sector in the UK just gets
Yeah, you know, people
it
talk
gets
about
short shrift.
bizarre, and it's huge. Culturally, it's huge. It puts us on the map. There's all sorts of things, you know, that you know, you know, if you're a little tiny country that nobody's heard of, and you wanted to put yourself out there, it's through your art, through your music, through your culture, through your food, whatever it is. That's how you influence people.
Yeah.
And you know, we have what they call it soft power, but we have a massive influence on the world through our creativity. And it
Yeah.
also comes through our writing, through, all this IP that we have
Yeah.
through our authors. If you think about, all the big authors for children and how many things are turned into things
Yeah.
by other countries that are doing
Yeah.
shows about our culture that we just seem to
Yeah.
ignore.
I mean, look
It's
what
bizarre.
Julia Donaldson has done for that, with the Christmas shorts, for
Well,
it's over a decade now,
yeah,
and it's still coming.
yeah, I mean, she's written over 140 books now. So,
Amazing.
even just the ones that we are. Again, I'm very privileged to work. I have such a.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a nice life. I get to work with Magic Light, who are wonderful. Who make these beautiful stories for children, and they have a fantastic relationship with Julia and Axel, who make these beautiful books. I think, you know. The fact that they are globally recognized, the fact that it's about the quality of childhood, the message that you give children, the stories that they will carry
Yeah.
through them to their children, hopefully as grandparents. You know what I mean? It's about
Yeah.
Covey
Yeah.
and
It's
all that
generational, isn't it?
generational. It's like it's not important like saving lives, like a doctor type thing, but it's important in terms of the
Yeah, I
roundness
know what you
of being
mean.
human, and you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not curing cancer. I'm not saying that, but
No, but
it's a privilege to have an influence on lives in the way that a teacher does.
yes, yeah,
You are
yeah,
outputting and giving something hopefully culturally rich that's thought through,
yeah,
thoughtful, and has meaning, and is it's something that will create. People always talk about creating memories. It's like we need to do this to create
yeah,
a memory. That's what
yeah.
children's TV does. It creates memories.
That's
They should
right.
be they should be good memories, but not just memories. They also are ways of living, ways of
Yeah,
behaving, how to behave with each other, to each other, and for yourself. It's like,
yeah,
it's all of that. I think it's just, it's a, I come from a line of teachers. My dad's a teacher. My sister's a headmistress. My other sister's a deputy head teacher. It's, there's a lot of influences in that. And again, it's a privilege to be able to put something into people's lives,
I
Those
think so.
messages.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be undermined. That it's just being a small cog in a large production of an animated show, and hoping and knowing maybe that there's even like one child out there who will get influenced by watching that and thinking, oh, I'd like to be an animator, or I'd like to go and just start drawing. I want to start drawing that character that I love on the show. And
Oh, we
that's
weren't
a
we weren't
nice.
we weren't taught this at school. There weren't even any
Oh
courses at
no,
university for this when I
no,
was, I was
no.
going to be a potter.
I just doodled. I just doodled that. Like you mentioned the annuals earlier. I used to love those Christmas annuals. As soon as I got them, I'd be copying and tracing and drawing, and I learned to draw because of my mother would sit and draw the Muppets with me because there wasn't that much merch out there. So she
Yeah.
would draw the Muppets, and then I would copy them, and then it was like Will Quack Quack annuals and things like that. That's how I learned to draw.
Will quack quack.
Will Quack Quack. I said, I'm hoping somebody chooses that. Nobody's chose Will Quack Quack yet. Simon, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. And it was really informative as well. And I just loved getting your opinion on the industry. These are little side nuggets that come with chats like this. It's like, yeah, it's about an old TV show, but it can inspire so many tangents to go off and discuss, and I really enjoyed that.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for asking me. I've
Oh, man.
enjoyed
Thank you for
talking
coming.
about it. It's brought me back lots of memories, and it's quite funny.
Good.
So many things you forget.
Yeah.
And then, because we don't talk about them often enough.
That's right. That's completely. And sometimes you'll just have, when you're in animation, you'll chat with, colleagues and you might have a circle of friends that aren't in the industry, and they'll be just as passionate about talking about stuff like this, but in a completely different way, in a less technical way and in a more sort of emotional, nostalgic way about it, and that's why it's nice to have these chats and just to bring back those memories.
Well, it's been great. Thank you so much. Anyway.
Thank you, man.